I'm going to give you 5 ways to fund your micro budget feature. Hi, I'm Jim Eves. I've made short films and feature films. I've financed some myself and I've got private investment for others, and I've also investigated lots of ways to finance your movies. So I'm going to give you my top 5 ways to finance your micro budget film. I'm also going to give you 2 special bonus tips for when dealing with private investors. Here we go. So let's start off by talking about funding bodies. There's schemes and grants available for filmmakers to apply for to get their films funded. Now these can be tricky to get into, and you really need to approach these with the same strategy you would for a film festival. You need to make sure that if you're going to apply for one of these funds, that you've gone to all the meetings, you've shook all the right hands, and you've met all the people behind them, so that when you put your application in, they know you are and they know to expect it. They've also got their own set of criteria they need to meet, whether that's diversity of filmmakers or the type of projects they're looking to fund. So don't apply on a scattergun approach. Don't pin all your hopes on applying and getting this grant unless you've really thoroughly researched it and you know that it's the right grant for you and you're the right fit for the people who are going to offer you the money. It can be quite a lengthy process to apply for these funds, and there'll be a long application form you need to fill in. What I would say is that these application forms actually can prove quite useful. Once you've done one, you'll know the types of questions you're going to get asked for other applications. So doing one might be the template you use for the rest. And also actually filling in an application will force you to answer certain questions about your project that you probably already should know the answer to. Maybe a side opportunity to these grants are talent labs, and I myself went on the Edinburgh International Film Festival Talent Lab. It was a really good experience. So if you are an up-and-coming filmmaker, maybe you've got a couple of credits, got a couple of short films that have won some awards, or maybe you've made your first feature, a talent lab is a really good way to connect with other filmmakers, maybe meet some sales and distribution, also go to some events, go to some screenings. The one I went on was fully funded back in the day, so they paid for accommodation, travel, and they also fed us while we were there. And I met some great filmmakers, including Graham Hughes, and I would point you to his episode of the podcast where he talks all about sales and distribution and film festivals. But me and Graham have been friends ever since, so it's a really good place to connect with people. Also, a lot of these talent labs are designed to level you up, so they'll be introducing you to people on the next level who potentially might fund your film, sell your film, or help you get it made. Next up, we've got co-productions. Now, this probably isn't right for a micro-budget filmmaker because you need a budget of at least 100,000 to get this working, because you'll be working with production companies abroad. You might find that if you shoot in a certain country, you have to spend a certain amount of money over there or hire locally. That might bring your production costs down if those wages are lower than they would be in this country, but really the cost you're going to have to outlay is on things like a lawyer, an accountant, and it can be quite a lengthy process. So my advice, if you're thinking of going down this route, is to find a producer who's already done a co-production, because they're bound to have the network already in place. But I do think this probably isn't the best avenue for a micro budget filmmaker, so I'm actually going to take it off my list. This isn't one of my 5, but I wanted to tell you about it. Next up, crowdfunding. Now, a lot of filmmakers have used this avenue quite successfully, and I definitely point you to a couple of podcast episodes. The one with MJ Dixon, he's crowdfunded a bunch of his films and he's really good at it and he gives some great tips. And also the episode with Jake C. Young, he's done the same thing and funded lots of his films through crowdfunding. If you're thinking of going down this route, it's worth doing a bit of research, and you definitely need to have a lot of assets ready for when that crowdfunding campaign launches. So your stills, your promo reel, you need to have actors interested or even cast in it. You've really got to put together a package that will make people interested in parting with their money. Also, another common mistake people make is they think they'll launch their funding campaign and everyone will give them some money, all family and friends. That's not the case. I've heard from fellow filmmakers that you often find you hear a very loud silence when you launch these funding campaigns, especially from people you thought maybe we're going to throw some money your way. So you've got to have lots of assets ready, and also don't only ask people to fund your film. What's more valuable might be a share on social media so that other people see that project. A good episode to listen to somebody who's been really successful with crowdfunding is my episode with Pat Higgins. His film Cheerleaders versus the Boy Band of the Screeching Dead, hope I got that title right, Pat, was all crowdfunded on Kickstarter, and it was the #1 project on Kickstarter when it launched. So some great tips in there and a project that did well. Something you should consider with crowdfunding is that when you finish the film, you really do need to honour all of those promises you've made for the people who funded you. So you can spend a lot of time getting DVDs made, posters, signed scripts, props, all that kind of stuff. So that really needs to be built into the budget. Also, the different platforms have different percentages they take and also different terms and conditions. Another plus side is that you have already got a built-in audience. So if you were to go to sales and distribution, you could say, look, I've already attracted this many people to my project. So there's definitely an audience with an appetite for it. The downside is they might look at the numbers and go, oh, well, you've already got all your friends and family and all your network to buy the film. So if we put it out, we're going to have to start from scratch. One other tip that filmmakers have told me is make sure you've got more assets and more content than you've planned for that 30-day period or however long you've done your crowdfunding campaign, because if the algorithm smiles on you and suddenly you get lots of people putting money in, you want to make sure you can take advantage of that and keep pushing and keep promoting. So the next one is using your own money. I've done this myself on a few of my feature films, and it has its upsides and it has its downsides. And obviously the first downside is you've got to find that money from somewhere, whether you're working a full-time job to pay for it, or you're getting a loan or a credit card. That money's got to come from somewhere. The downsides are that it can be quite painful when things don't go right on set, because you can see the money slipping through your fingers, and you can also, if you've earned that money to shoot a film with, then you really do see the value of every pound you spend. So an advantage there might be that you put every penny on screen. One of the advantages is that you've got total freedom. You're the one paying for it, so you can make any film you like, but you really do need to be economical with that budget. When we shot The Witch's Hammer, we self-financed that, and that was shot on 35mm. So you can imagine what it was like listening to that camera whirring away, imagining all the money going through it. It did focus in, especially because it was film, it focused us on exactly what we needed to capture. So it was a good training ground for not wasting any time on set and putting all the money on screen. But it is tough, especially on film, because you might have a really good scene happening in front of you and you know you've only got 2 takes at it because that's all you can afford to capture. A little different in the digital world, but there's always going to be little things you might need to spend money on, and that can be painful. So next up is family money. So you may have a wealthy relative or somebody who's really interested in helping you with your career and progressing and making a feature film. So this can be fantastic, having someone on your side who's interested in financing a film, but you do need to explain to them the risks. You need to say, this is what I'm making, it might not make any money, it might take this long for me to pay you back, or I might never be able to pay you back, but it's worth having that honest conversation early on, because this isn't like an investor who you're going to hear from every so often and have to report to. This is someone you might see at Christmas, birthdays, christenings. So really explain that to them properly, because you don't want that ruining a relationship forever. So if I go back to crowdfunding again for a second, and family money, because sometimes families do invest in your crowdfund if you're lucky. One of the mistakes I think students make is they crowdfund their final project in their 3rd year. And I think this is a mistake, because what happens is all of those family and friends who are only going to fund you once, fund you on your short film, and yeah, you can make an amazing short film for 10 grand, but you could also make a pretty good short film for say £1,000 and save that bite of the apple for when you make your feature. Save all of those funders for when you make your feature, because you won't get that chance again. Obviously, when you're at university, the university's there to help you. Don't decide to go and shoot a film in Malta and waste all your money on expenses and travel. Use that short film as a bit of a test run to get yourself ready to make a feature film when you leave. Lastly, we've got someone else's money. So this would be a private investor. Now, I've done this myself a few times and it's worked really well if you've got a good relationship with the person who's invested, but you do really need to work out what it is that private investor wants from investing in that film. So they might just be interested in film. There might be a wealthy individual who just wants to put their money into a film, and that's enough for them. They just want to see their name on the poster. Or it might be someone who actually wants to make some money, in which case you're going to need an accountant anyway and someone who can draw up a contract. So in that contract, it's got to be explained the risks involved in investing in film and also the likelihood of when and if they'll get their money back. You might have an investor who just wants to come and do a set visit. My tip for that is, if you're going to get investors onto your set, make sure it's a very stress-free day when you're not shooting anything big or important. Get them down when you're doing something fun, something where you can give them the attention they need. Because for some investors, that's what they paid for, that VIP experience on a film set, coming down, being treated well and showing what it's like to make a film. Some investors might be interested in the tax breaks available. So if you're going to do SEIS, for example, you definitely want to get a lawyer and an accountant on that so that you make all the right choices, fill in the forms properly so they can get those tax breaks. If you're interested in SEIS, then definitely check out my episode with Chris Niles, where he talks about his debut feature and how they funded the film using SEIS. When you're dealing with private investors, you really want to give them the impression that the train is leaving the station. So if you go to a private investor and you're saying, oh, we really need this money, without you, we can't get the film made, then it comes across as desperate. If the angle is, we're going to make this film with or without you, but we'd love to have you involved, you take the desperation out and you also add a little bit of FOMO, a little bit of fear of missing out. This thing's going to happen with or without me, so do I want to miss out on the opportunity? So I promised you 2 bonus tips. So these are my bonus tips for private investors. And these are little things that will help you maybe get somebody over the line if they're interested in investing in your film. So the first one, and this is going to come across super cheesy, but trust me, it works, is you've got your artwork, you've got your poster done. Hopefully you've done some sort of presentation to show this person, you know, with some nice images on it, things you're inspired by. Make it very visual so they can see where this is headed. You've shown them this pitch. Start with your poster and end with your poster, but on the final poster, I want you to put executive producer and then their name at the top. Now, sometimes all it will do is make them smile, but for some private investors, what it does is it gives them that visual impression of what it's going to be like when their name is on that poster. Maybe it won't be quite so big as how you're going to mock it up in the presentation, but it really will give them that feeling of, oh wow, that's what it's going to look like when I'm on the poster and when I'm involved with this production. And my other tip is always have a bob with you. Now, I myself, I'm a creative person, I'm not great with numbers, thankfully I've got a producer who is, but I also, if I go into a room, I might not instill that private investor with confidence as to me handling numbers and figures. So what I suggest you do is take a bob with you. And what I mean by take a bob with you is you need to take somebody, maybe a little bit older, but somebody who knows all the lingo when it comes to finance, tax schemes, somebody who looks the part. So when your private investor's having that conversation with you, they can look at you and go, wow, this person knows all about the creative, they've got a vision for their project, it's really exciting, and they've also got this other Bob with them and he knows about the financials, so my money is in safe hands. You'd be amazed how well that works, having that kind of adult in the room, somebody that they're used to seeing probably in their daily lives, a sort of business person who's going to handle the money, who can answer questions, somebody who uses all the right lingo so that they feel comfortable giving you that investment. I hope those tips have helped you think about how you're going to finance your film. Please do drop in the comments if I've missed some other ways that us filmmakers need to figure out to finance your film. I'm really interested to hear what you think. And also let me know if any of these proved successful for you or if you've got any tips to add to what I've already said. See you on the next one.